Advanced Residential Applications and Case Studies. Chapter 3, the Valuation Process, page 1, Overview. Chapter Learning Objectives. Explain the USPAP requirements for highest and best use analysis and apply the tests of highest and best use in complex property examples. Recognize the USPAP requirements for the 3 approaches to value and inclusion of personal or intangible items in real property appraisals. Recognize the requirements for analyzing current agreements and listings and prior sales and the normal course of business. End of page. Page 2, Chapter Introduction. Having considered the scope of work rule as it logically fits in at the end of Standards Rule 1-2, let's now return to Standard 1 to consider some more concepts that we must grasp in the appraisal of complex properties. We will look at Standards Rule 1-3 and talk about highest and best use. We will also go through some case studies. Next comes Standards Rule 1-4, which addresses the 3 approaches to value and partial interests. It also deals with anticipated public improvements and inclusion of personal property and intangible items. Standards Rule 1-5 requires us to analyze agreements of sale and current options and listings of the subject property. We will discuss these issues as they pertain to complex properties. Finally, we will cover Standards Rule 1-6, which addresses reconciliation. End of page. Page 3, Standards Rule 1-3. When necessary for credible assignment results in developing a market value opinion, an appraiser must A. Identify and analyze the effect on use and value of Roman numeral 1, existing land use regulations. Roman numeral 2, reasonably probable modifications of such land use regulations. Roman numeral 3, economic supply and demand. Roman numeral 4, the physical adaptability of the real estate. And Roman numeral 5, market area trends. And comment. An appraiser must avoid making an unsupported assumption or premise about market area trends, effective age, and remaining life. B. Develop an opinion of the highest and best use of the real estate. Comment. An appraiser must analyze the relevant legal, physical, and economic factors to the extent necessary to support the appraiser's highest and best use conclusions. More often than not, your appraisal assignments will require you to develop an opinion of market value. We will consider some other types of value later on, but right now, let's discuss the requirements for market value opinions. You must consider the matters stated in SR 1-3 only when they are necessary for credible assignment results. In most cases, you will find these issues are in fact, necessary for credible assignment results, especially when appraising a complex property. Existing land use regulations, be they public, such as zoning, or private, such as deed restrictions, set parameters for use and development of real estate. When such regulations exist, you must determine your property's compliance or lack thereof with these regulations. In the event that the subject property is not in compliance with land use regulations, it is very likely that the value of the property could be negatively impacted. Solutions might include obtaining a variance or correcting the illegal use or feature of the property at some expense. The appraiser may also consider reasonably probable modification of such land use regulations. Have there been prior instances of zoning change requests granted for similar properties and situations? Is it likely that such a request might be granted in this case? If a zoning change is granted, will the market still be reluctant to value the property as highly as it would other properties which do not require such a zoning change? Or is there still some feature or use of the property which makes the property non-conforming in the eyes of the market, if not in the eyes of the zoning officials? What about the market area trends? Is the market area enjoying growth, or is it comfortably stable? Perhaps the market area is in decline or emerging from a period of decline by virtue of revitalization. As mentioned earlier, appraisers are, to some degree, market diagnosticians. We are not doctors in the sense that we make the markets well if they are sick, but that we must adept at diagnosing the market and determining if it is sick or well, declining, holding on for dear life, improving, etc. Is such consideration necessary in a market value appraisal? Yes, and this is especially true when the property is complex or the market is in some extreme state, either good or bad. End of page. Page 4, highest and best use. Highest and best use analysis goes hand in hand with market value appraisals. There is simply no escaping this step in the appraisal process. You must determine the one use for the subject property that is legally permissible, physically possible, financially feasible, and maximally productive. The highest and best use analysis is based on the economic principles of supply and demand, substitution, balance, and conformity. The interdependent factors that influence value, utility, scarcity, desire, and effective purchasing power are economic in origin. You must analyze the relevant legal, physical, and economic factors to the extent necessary to support your highest and best use conclusion. Land is appraised as if it is vacant and available for development to its highest and best use. The appraisal of the improvements is based on their actual contribution to the site. Highest and best use analysis is the foundation in the process of appraising a complex property. The conclusions reached in this analysis will often determine which approaches are used, which properties will be used as comparables, and what factors will require adjustments. End of page.